Be clear what's happening in this country. It's Nazism. Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Abnormal Alley, the go-to spot where we unpack the raw truths about politics, culture clashes, and the often overlooked woke hypocrisy that's tearing at the fabric of America. If you're fed up with the mainstream media glossing over leftist racism while amplifying every other narrative, smash that like button right now and hit subscribe to join the conversation on real examples of American left racism in action. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss our deep dives into the progressive double standards and cultural controversies. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 5 shocking instances where the American left revealed its incredible racism. And these stories aren't just headlines, they're patterns that challenge everything we've been told about who the real bigots are in this country. Right now, in the summer of 2025, the online world is in total meltdown over Sydney Sweeney's bold new ad campaign with American Eagle. You might have seen the spots. They're built around this clever wordplay. Sydney Sweeney has great genes, cleverly nodding to both the denim and genetics. But what should have been a fun, lighthearted promo for a rising star has exploded into a firestorm of controversy, with the left accusing it of everything from racism to promoting eugenics. Critics on social media and in outlets like NPR have slammed the ads for allegedly tying into discredited ideologies of racial superiority, pointing out how focusing on a white, blonde woman's genes evokes white supremacy and exclusionary beauty standards that marginalize people of color.
Complaining about that Sydney Sweeney jeans ad, so I went and saw it. That's Nazi propaganda. Wow.
I will be the friend that's too woke because those Sydney Sweeney American Eagle ads are weird. Like fascist weird. Like Nazi propaganda weird.
This is Nazi.
NBC News reported on the backlash, highlighting how the campaign's emphasis on Sweeney's physical attributes has been labeled as hypersexualization with racial undertones, especially since her Republican registration came to light. Even Axios weighed in, noting how this has sparked a fresh culture war over representation, race, and what counts as inclusive in advertising. Fortune detailed the social media frenzy, where users debated whether the jeans pun was innocent or a subtle nod to Western beauty ideals that the left see as inherently oppressive. It's absurd. In a time when we're supposed to celebrate diversity, a white woman simply modeling clothes has become a symbol of privilege and exclusion. This isn't about the ads. It's peak woke hypocrisy, where progressives twist everyday marketing into a racial battlefield to virtue signal and divide. I mean, just imagine if a black woman wore the jeans. Would there be a backlash at all? And if there was, wouldn't those saying anything just be labeled racist and intolerant? And believe me, this brand of casual racism from the left isn't confined to celebrity ads or online rants. It gets personal, infiltrating workplaces and everyday interactions.
Nothing actual real-life scenarios. So would you mind kind of a role play where
Okay.
I will, in this scenario, be the person of color who's bringing concern to you, and then you'll show how to navigate that.
Sure.
Okay, so workplace scenario. Hi, Robin.
Hi.
I noticed you passed by me in the hall earlier today, and you were really overdoing the smile, and it made me feel patronized, and it felt racist. And I'm thinking about going to HR about it.
Well, I appreciate you letting me know, and I imagine that's not without its risks. I certainly would not have intended to have that impact on you, but I'm very clear that I did have that impact on you. I would love to offer you a repair if that's something you're ready for.
I don't want to talk about it right now
Okay.
because I'm hurt.
Okay, understood. If that changes, let me know.
When I'm ready to talk, I'll talk
Yep.
to you.
Understood.
At this point, I think we should take separate hallways.
Okay,
So,
understood.
I'll tell you a story about what happened to me right after Donald Trump secured his victory in the 2024 election, the one where he defeated Kamala Harris, sweeping key battleground states and clinching both Electoral College majority and the popular vote. A white liberal girl I work with sauntered up to me with this condescending smirk, as if she knew something I didn't. and straight up asked me, knowing I voted for Trump, how do you feel now that you're about to be deported? Let that sink in. I'm an American citizen, raised in America, with roots as deep as anyone's, but in her mind, my appearance alone marked me as an outsider, someone Trump's policies would target. That assumption wasn't just ignorant, it was profoundly racist, stripping away my identity and reducing me to a caricature based on skin color or ethnicity. And it's the exact kind of patronizing stereotype that the left rails against when it comes from the right, but they deploy it freely when it fits their worldview, assuming minorities are perpetual victims in need of their enlightened pity. And most of them are white people who get offended on everybody else's behalf. Moments like these expose the hypocrisy. They preach inclusion but practice exclusion through their biased lenses. These aren't isolated incidents or mere slips. They're indicative of a systemic pattern in leftist thought where racism masquerades as anti-racism, often excusing bias against whites or condescending to minorities.
Dear white people, the minimum requirement of black friends needed to not seem racist has just been raised to 2. Sorry, but your weed man, Tyrone, does not count.
Let's explore some of the most egregious cases that lay this bare, starting with one that still resonates for its callous handling of human tragedy. Consider the heartbreaking saga of Gabby Petito in 2021, a young 22-year-old influencer who vanished during a scenic cross-country van trip with her fiancé, Brian Laundrie. As the nation watched, her disappearance sparked a massive search effort, with media outlets and social media users rallying to spread awareness. Tragically, her body was discovered in Wyoming, confirming she had been murdered, leaving her family shattered and the public mourning a life cut short. Yet, in the midst of this grief, many voices from the American left didn't offer condolence, support, or even calls for justice. Instead, they weaponized the story to decry what they termed as missing white woman syndrome. This critique argued that the intense spotlight on Petito revealed a racist bias, as cases involving missing women of color rarely receive comparable attention or resources. The Los Angeles Times captured how this narrative swiftly overshadowed the actual events, turning a personal tragedy into a platform for broader societal finger-pointing. The New York Times delved into how commentators fixated on the disparity, often minimizing the family's pain in the process. Psychiatric Times later analyzed the psychological toll, noting how the biased discussion dominated headlines while sidelining the intimate partner violence at the heart of the case. Democracy Now! Highlighted parallels with missing and indigenous women, but the tone frequently came across as dismissive of Petito's story itself. While shining a light on inequalities can be important, the execution here felt exploitative, using a white woman's death as fodder for racial point scoring rather than fostering genuine empathy or solutions. This approach reeks of racism, prioritizing ideological battles over human compassion and subtly implying that white victims' stories are less worthy of undivided attention. It's a stark example of how the left's focus on systemic issues can veer into insensitivity, alienating people and deepening divides instead of bridging them. And honestly, anyone who did this should be absolutely ashamed of themselves, and I can't imagine how Gabby Petito's family and loved ones feel about this. Now pivot to the chaotic events at the Lincoln Memorial in January 2019, involving students from Covington Catholic School. These mostly white teens, fresh from the March for Life rally and sporting MAGA hats, found themselves in an intense standoff captured on video. A clip showed Nicholas Sandman, one of the students, standing face to face with Native American elder Nathan Phillips, who was drumming and chanting. The footage went viral, and left-leaning media giants like CNN and the Washington Post erupted in condemnation, portraying the boys as racist agitators, mocking and surrounding Phillips. High-profile celebrities like Alyssa Milano and Kathy Griffin fueled the fire, leading to a barrage of online harassment, doxing, and credible death threats against the kids and their families. But as the fuller videos emerged, some over an hour long, the narrative crumbled. They revealed that the students had been accosted first by a group of black Hebrew Israelites, and Phillips had approached them, not the other way around. Wikipedia documented the fallout, including successful defamation lawsuits against CNN, The Washington Post, and NBC, resulting in undisclosed settlements. Reason magazine reflected on the media's rush to judgment a year later, calling it a botched story driven by bias. Vox explained the political undercurrents, but even they acknowledged the initial framing is oversimplified. The Atlantic critiqued the press for failing to learn from the incident, emphasizing how assumptions on race, politics, and symbols like MAGA hats led to mob mentality. This wasn't journalism. It was a prejudiced pile-on that ignored context, empathy, and filtered through the automatic assumption that white conservative teens were inherently guilty. The hypocrisy is glaring. The left champions due process and anti-bullying, yet they unleashed a digital lynch mob, exposing their own racial and ideological biases in the process. Another glaring instance surfaced in 2018 with Sarah Jeong's appointment to the New York Times editorial board. Almost immediately resurfaced tweets from her past painted a troubling picture. Posts like, "Oh man, it's kind of sick how much joy I get out of being cruel to old white men," and hashtag cancel white people. And these weren't isolated quips. They formed a pattern of anti-white rhetoric that, if directed at any other group, would likely end a career in flames. Yet the left mounted a robust defense. The BBC reported how the Times stood firm, characterizing the tweets as satirical counters to harassment Jeong had endured as an Asian American woman. The New York Times itself issued statements emphasizing context and arguing that the posts were responses to trolls. The New Yorker explored the question of context, debating whether such language qualified as racism when aimed at the majority. The Washington Post framed it as a broader discussion on whether mocking white people counts as punching up in a power dynamic. Vox delved into the Twitter ecosystem, suggesting that the platform's toxicity amplified the issue. This selective forgiveness screams double standard. Anti-white sentiments get rationalized as venting or irony in progressive circles, but similar barbs against minorities spark outrage and cancellations. It's a form of racism that's excused because it aligns with leftist views on power structures, revealing how the movement protects its own while preaching universal tolerance. In the heat of the 2020 presidential campaign, Joe Biden delivered a line that encapsulated patronizing attitudes towards minorities as well. Appearing on The Breakfast Club, a popular radio show hosted by Charlamagne tha God, Biden grew frustrated when questioned about his appeal to black voters. He quipped, "If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or for Trump, then you ain't black."
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
This offhand remark didn't just dismiss undecided voters, it policed black identity, implying that true blackness required Democratic Party loyalty and erasing personal agency. CNN covered Biden's later apology, where he called it a wise guy comment. But he didn't retract the essence. Rev provided the full transcript showing the exchange's tension and Charlemagne's pushback. PBS reported on Biden's admission of being too cavalier, yet many left-leaning voices downplayed it as a joke rather than offensive. NPR highlighted the backlash from black communities feeling insulted by the presumption. FactCheck.org scrutinized the interview for other claims, but the "ain't black" line stood out as emblematic of arrogance. This is textbook paternalism, assuming minorities are a captive audience, unable to think independently without betraying their race. The left's minimization of it underscores their racism, treating people of color as a monolith to be owned, not individuals to be persuaded. Finally, let's examine the Smithsonian's contentious Whiteness Chart from July 2020. As part of the National Museum of African American History and Culture Online's Talking About Race, this graphic dissected aspects of whiteness in U.S. culture, attributing traits like hard work, rational thinking, punctuality, self-reliance, the nuclear family, and objective decision-making to white dominance, portraying them as tools of oppression. The Washington Post chronicled the swift backlash, including from Donald Trump Jr., which forced its removal amid accusations of stereotyping. Business Insider detailed the museum's apology, acknowledging the chart's unintended divisiveness. Newsweek criticized how it implied non-whites inherently lacked these virtues, fueling stereotypes under anti-racism's banner. Fox News reported on the broader context, noting the museum's initial defense before caving to pressure. The New York Post highlighted public outcry over labeling universal positives as white, seeing it as shaming. This institutional effort, meant to educate, instead racialized success and guilt-tripped whites, perpetuating division. It's leftist racism cloaked in equity, demonizing cultural norms to advance an agenda, all while claiming moral superiority. There you have it, a thorough exploration of how the American left's racism manifests in media, politics, institutions, and everyday life, often through hypocrisy that contradicts their own principles. These examples, from exploiting grief and hasty smears to excuse bigotry, condescending dictates, and stereotyped virtues, paint a picture of a movement that's lost its way, prioritizing ideology over humanity. If this breakdown has you questioning woke narratives or hunting for more on progressive racism exposed, know that you're part of a growing chorus demanding accountability. And if you stuck with me through this, huge thanks. Your engagement fuels these discussions. Smash that like button if these revelations hit home, and subscribe for ongoing exposés on American politics, cultures, media biases, and leftist double standards. And enable those bell notifications for instant updates. In the comments, let me know, which of these stories outraged you the most? Have you witnessed similar leftist racism in your life? Share your experiences or suggest topics like more on 2024 election fallout or celebrity culture hypocrisy. Let's build a community that's unafraid to speak the truth. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one where we tackle even more unspoken truths.